Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It is time for another true crime video yet again, and today we will be talking about the case of Natalia Barnett. Natalia Grace Barnett was born in the Ukraine in 2003. Maybe. We are not sure about this because even Natalia herself isn't actually sure when her actual birthday is, as she grew up in a group home in the Ukraine before she arrived in the United States at around 3 to 4 years old. Natalia came to the US via an adoption program in the Ukraine, and the rest was history. Now, aside from being an orphan, Natalia was born with dwarfism and a club foot, making it extremely difficult for her to move around and walk on her own. And to make things even worse for this little girl, she was also diagnosed with scoliosis. So she had a pretty rough life from the get-go. Now, in 2008, she was taken in by her first foster or adoptive family. I'm not sure if they legally adopted her, but they took her in. However, this did not last long and they returned her to the adoption agency, saying that things did not work out. 2 years later, in 2010, Natalia was yet again adopted by another family, the Barnetts. Michael and Christine Barnett were a couple from Indiana who had 3 sons. Now, according to Michael, he got a call from an adoption agency in Florida telling him that there was a little girl there who was available for adoption and that they had 24 hours to make a decision. Years later, he would say in an interview that this was a huge red flag. How he was randomly contacted by an adoption agency and that they were only given a day or 24 hours to make this huge life-changing decision. However, I do think that some parts of his statement was exaggerated. I mean, an adoption agency just randomly called you. How would they even have your contact details in the first place? Let alone have any knowledge about your interest in adopting a child. Clearly, he had been in contact with this agency prior. Anyway, they go and meet up with the people from this adoption agency, and this is also the first time that they met Natalia. And according to the Barnetts, they found it quite strange when, as soon as Natalia saw them, she started to smile from ear to ear and immediately started referring to them as mommy and daddy. But they signed the adoption papers anyway and took her home that night. Now, allegedly, just a few minutes in, Christine decided to bathe her new daughter, and this is when she shouted Michael's name frantically. Michael then went inside the bathroom to see what was wrong, and all Christine said was, "Look." And according to Michael, he was caught completely off guard. Their 6-year-old daughter, Natalia, allegedly had a full set of pubic hair. She had pubic hair at the age of 6. Now, they were a bit freaked out at first but completely dismissed it. Now, again, just my opinion, I think a 6-year-old having pubic hair is quite alarming but not impossible. Now, the Barnetts also claimed that they later found clothes that Natalia had tried to get rid of, and that these garments, these discarded garments, had stains of what seemed to be menstrual blood. They also found it strange how she had no interest in playing with toys and even preferred talking to older kids or teenagers rather than kids her age. Now, the Barnetts also claim that they had a friend from the Ukraine who tried to speak to Natalia using their native language, and allegedly Natalia did not understand a single word. Now, again, I'm not trying to be biased here, but If Natalia was born in 2003 and arrived in the US before her initial adoption in 2008, she would be around 4 years old or even younger when she arrived in the US. And it's possible that she had already forgotten her native language, especially considering the fact that she had no one to speak to in that language when she arrived in the US. Now, the Barnetts also noted how developed Natalia's vocabulary was and how mature she was for her age. They also claimed that Natalia had tried to hurt them and the three boys during multiple occasions and even threatened to kill them. According to the adoptive mother, Christine, it seemed like Natalia had an unhealthy fixation towards her and tried to kill her at least twice. She says that she once saw Natalia putting lemon pine sol in her coffee, and one time she even tried to push Christine against an electric fence. Now, the coffee incident is possible. Natalia could have gotten a chair to reach the kitchen counters. Other people who have dwarfism have spoken about this, saying that it would have been physically impossible for Natalia, who at the time was only around 2 feet tall, to push a fully grown woman into her death. She was simply not capable of doing that. Michael and Christine also claims that they would wake up in the middle of the night and see Natalia standing over their beds, creepily staring at them, and when they ask her what she was doing, she would say something along the lines of, "I'm waiting for the right moment." And to add more to her strange behaviors, the Barnetts also said that Natalia started to jump out of their vehicle while it was still in motion. I just find it funny how they say that she was standing over their beds. She's 2 feet tall. Unless your mattress was on the ground, she wouldn't be able to do that. Just saying. Now, this was only during the first few months of the Barnetts taking her in, and they already had a lot of negative things to say about Natalia. However, Natalia, on the other hand, told a completely different story. According to her, the first few months, she felt loved and well taken care of, and that she was very happy with her new family. However, things started to change after she was taken into the children's hospital for a surgery to correct her club foot. And this is when things start to become confusing. There are some articles that mention that the Barnetts never picked Natalia up from the hospital after receiving surgery, and that she was eventually placed in what was described to be a halfway house before being placed in an apartment in Westfield, Indiana, by herself. Now, these articles claim that Michael would often check on Natalia and bring her food. However, there are also a lot of articles that do not mention this at all, and just fast forward to a few years later. And since I'm not sure about this detail, we will fast forward to a few years later as well. So in 2012, 4 years after adopting Natalia, the Barnetts filed a motion to have Natalia's age changed. The judge followed through and had her birth year changed from 2003 to 1989. And if this were true, it would have meant that Michael and Christine had actually adopted a 21-year-old woman in 2010 instead of a 7-year-old girl. Now, according to the Barnetts, they took Natalia for a psychiatric evaluation where she allegedly told the doctor about her plans of murdering the entire Barnett family and confessed about lying about her age. Now, I don't know how true this is, but if you do have that motive, are you going to tell someone about your plans? I don't think so. Not unless You're just trying to say that to sound scary or to sound intimidating, you know? Now, the Barnetts also claimed that they had papers and medical records to prove that Natalia was indeed lying about her age, and these were presented in court. However, this was also never confirmed to be true. According to the Barnetts, Natalia's teeth, reproductive development, and bone density were all examined, and that she was also later diagnosed to be a psychopath as well as a sociopath. Now, the media tried to confirm this by getting a copy of her medical records, but this, of course, would be a violation of patients' rights and privacy. Therefore, the hospital never released anything to the public. The following year, 2013, Michael and Christine's eldest son, Jacob, who was a child genius, was offered a scholarship in Canada, and this was a great opportunity for him. So the family packed up all their belongings and moved to Canada to support him. However, they did not bring Natalia with them. Instead, they got her an apartment in Fayetteville. And according to the Barnetts, Natalia was completely set up. They paid for her rent, got her a social security number, and made sure that she would always have something to eat. They also gave her a cell phone so that she could stay in contact with them. However, this apartment was clearly not made for someone with dwarfism. And if Natalia was really born in 2003, she would have only been 10 years old and was already living by herself. Now, after some time, she got evicted from her apartment, and the Barnetts reportedly helped her out by paying for a new one. And according to Christine, they told Natalia that just like what they did for their other kids, they would pay Natalia's rent for another year. After that, she would have to fend for herself. Christine also talked about how they had plans on getting Natalia in college to study cosmetology, but all of these downs were pushed down the drain when all communications between Natalia and her adoptive family suddenly came to a halt. And they say that the reason for this was that the Barnetts were upset after they received a letter informing them that Natalia had changed the beneficiary of her insurance policy from Michael to someone else. The Barnetts also expressed their disappointment, saying that Natalia could have made an effort to get in contact with them, as they did provide her with a cell phone. However, she never did. In September of 2014, Natalia finally reported her adoptive parents to the police. 2 years later, at the age of 13 or 27, we don't really know, Natalia started attending a tuition-free school and got taken in by another family. She wasn't legally adopted by them, but they took care of her and believed that she was indeed a minor. This family then tried to file for a petition to be Natalia's legal guardians. However, this was dismissed because the Barnetts had her birth year changed from 2003 to 1989, making her an adult. Investigators on Natalia's case then submitted an affidavit stating that the Barnetts were well aware that Natalia was a child. This was backed up by medical records showing that Natalia was evaluated at least twice, and the first evaluation in 2010 determined her age to be around 8 years old at the time. Now, the second one was carried out in 2013, just before the Barnetts left for Canada. This was a skeletal survey that confirmed that Natalia was indeed a child. Now, fast forward to September 2019, this case started to blow up and gain international attention. Warrants were issued against the Barnetts, who were now divorced, and they were facing separate charges of felony neglect of a dependent. Christine turned herself in, then posted a $5,500 bond, while Michael posted a $5,000 bail. Now, they both pleaded not guilty, but if they were found guilty in court, they could be facing 6 to 20 years in prison. The trials were set to begin in 2020 originally, but kept on getting rescheduled due to the global pandemic. But finally, the trials for Michael Barnett started last year. In October 2022, after a 2-hour deliberation, Michael was found not guilty and was completely acquitted from 3 counts of neglect of a dependent and 1 count of conspiracy to commit neglect of a dependent. The judge ruled that the words adult, child, and minor could not be used in court during the proceedings, and that Natalia can only be referred to as her legal age. The charges against the Barnetts were also for neglecting a dependent and not a minor. The defense claims that Natalia is a little person, but she was able-bodied and not at all disabled, despite the physical birth defects that she was born with and despite using a walker. Now, Christine's trials, on the other hand, were scheduled to begin by April 10, 2023. So that would have been just a few weeks ago. However, just 3 weeks before the trial started, the case and all charges against her were dismissed. And that is where this story ends. We have no idea how old Natalia actually is, and we may never find out. This is a very confusing case, and I know people are 50-50 on this. Honestly, I think that it is possible that Natalia was born before 2003, but I do not think that she was born in 1989 either. Probably somewhere in between. Now, that's just my personal opinion. As usual, I would really love to hear your thoughts on this case. So if you have any thoughts, if you have your own opinions, please let me know in the comment section so we could have a fun and healthy discussion. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys on my next video.